Hello, everyone.
Hi.
How are we all today? Rough? Not rough? Well, I hope your hangovers are manageable at least. I'm CCP Sledgehammer. I'm here with CCP Edelweiss and CCP Calliope. We're all from Team Odyssey. We're also going to be introducing Team Equinox to the stage after this for more chat about the character progression and career progression. But we're here to talk to you about how we're improving the experience for newbies in EVEOnline at the very beginning. So, this is Team Odyssey. The fine folks you see before you are recent and current members of the team. We're multidisciplinary. That's part of the Academy segment of EVEOnline. Alongside Team Equinox and Team Pathfinder. This collection of teams is working closely with one another to improve the experience of EVEOnline for new players. Odyssey was formed in January 2020. We're a storyline content team that's been tasked with creating a new experience for players coming into the game. So, what are we actually doing? We're creating a character-driven narrative experience to introduce players to the world of New Eden. We're heavily storyline focused, and we want to weave the tutorialization of EVE into the story and narrative. Ultimately, we want to provide a space for new players to become comfortable in New Eden and to have the confidence to strike out and forge their own path in EVEOnline. And very importantly, we're building the tools that we need to tell this story. So we briefly touched on the node graph editor yesterday. We're also working very closely with cinematic and art teams to create new camera cutscene tech that we can insert into experiences. And we'll get into a little bit more about that later. So what's actually shaped our approach? What are the design pillars that we set out with? We want to deliver on the sci-fi promise of EVEOnline. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, and I think EVE is probably the best spaceship game that exists. The story should be exciting and engaging, and we want to use the story to really showcase what EVE has to offer. All the characters in the story should feel human. We want to breed engagement and promote good relationships with these characters. So we want them to feel human, to be well fleshed out, and Calliope is going to touch on the process that we use to create these after this. We want to make sure that we validate our ideas and our assumptions early. So what we've done is partnered with player research to test all of these experiences at very early stages of development. We threw prototypes together and then put it in front of user testing and gained so much valuable feedback that the quality that you see in the experience just wouldn't exist without this process. And speaking of quality, we want to set the bar for what content in EVEOnline could be. I'd encourage you all to just play the Air MPE. Ultimately, at the end of it, I would love for it to be the case that if a veteran decides to spin up an alt, they can see the benefit of going through the new player experience and think, yeah, I want to do this story arc. It's fun. So, where did we start? In September of 2021, we released the first chapter of the Air MPE. And this is the attack on the Air cloning facility where you've just become a new capsuleer. Here you can see the Air station provided to us by the wonderful dudes over in art. It's stunning. Check out, you can find it in any of the newbie systems in EVEOnline. We wanted to wow the player with visuals that really showcase the capabilities of our engine. So again, working very closely with art to create these wonderful sci-fi vistas, these beautiful, engaging scenes. Very importantly, we want to limit the possibility of the player freaking out. Now, EVE has many windows. And if we revealed all of these to the player at once, they would probably just close the client, go out, get some fresh air, have a drink, I don't know. So what we want to do is gradually reveal the UI. This is just moments after the player has entered the scene. And you can see here that we have a UI highlight showing the civilian Estero, and we have the selected item info panel, or selected item panel, sorry. As we go through the experience, we reveal more and more of the UI so that the players gradually are introduced to all of the interfaces that EVE has to offer. We want to hook the player with a meaningful and exciting combat experience. So we also have to consider that the player doesn't know how to fly a ship at this point. So step by step, we teach them how to move, how to interact with objects in space, and build this up until they're involved in an actual combat experience. We also really wanted to give them a taste of seeing like fleet battles. So we have NPC actors or NPC ships in this scene that are battling in the background. Lasers, railguns, all those cool things. We expose the player to the skill window and the fitting window for the first time. You can see here we have a highlight, a blink on the mining laser upgrade in the player's inventory, and we have a highlight for the free slot that we want them to fit it to. So this is kind of example of the paradigm that we set for guidance for new players. And this is present throughout the entire experience. There's a little bit of a trick to this. We can't hold their hand all the time or for the entire experience. So we want to be careful about paring back the guidance so that it doesn't constantly feel like we're bashing players over the head with guidance and being too heavy-handed with things. But at least at the beginning, we kind of have to be heavy-handed. The other thing that was very important for new players to understand is that you can die and it's fine. Like, you lose maybe some implants, you lose your ship, obviously, but death is just the beginning of a new adventure for any capsuleer. In March, we released the Mining Mystery, a mining adventure where you're introduced to Elias Peltonen and the sort of industrial side of the Association for Interdisciplinary Research. What you're about to see is the first moments of the player arriving at the mining site. I think this is a wonderful showcase for all of the different components that we pulled together, like the cutscene tech, the node graph to script all of this, the voice acting, conversation windows, and just quite absolutely stunning dungeon. So here you go. We're about to go into the cutscene. And this is one of the few occasions where you'll see something like this in EVEOnline. And this is all in engine. This isn't pre-rendered. Here we have Aura explaining to the player that the scale of this operation is quite impressive for such a new corporation. Got some pretty lasers here. We love to see asteroids getting blown up. We have Elias here in his Orca. And then we transition back to the interface that you're all familiar with. So we wanted to teach the player that there's a low barrier of entry means to make a skin EVEOnline. This is mining. We find asteroids in space, you can mine it, you get the ore, you can sell that ore. It's a really simple loop to teach the player. It also gave us the opportunity to introduce them to the wallet, for them to actually sell things on the market, and appreciate that, yeah, I can make a living here. This is something that I could do. We also, obviously, are primarily focused on story. So we add more mystery to this encounter by means of the discovery of a wreck, which bears quite a striking similarity to the ships that attacked the cloning facility in September. So what are some key takeaways from all of our releases? We're less about being a tutorial team. We're more about telling a story. We are a storyline content team. We've validated all of our experiences with early user testing, and big thanks to our external partners and our internal player researchers for this. We're developing the tools that we need instead of relying on older content systems. And we have a heavy investment in creating relatable characters and a compelling narrative journey. Players like learning, but they don't like being taught. This is true for humans as well. So why are we doing this? I'm going to pass this over to CCP Calliope, and she's going to go a little bit more into why we're doing this. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Hi, I am CCP Calliope. I am the narrative designer on Team Odyssey, and I just want to give you a little bit of insight into why we're making the decisions that we're making, and to go into a little bit more detail about the fun story elements that we're adding. So, as we know, New Eden is big. It's like really, really, really big. So it can be super overwhelming for someone to start their journey as a fresh capsuleer in this vast space. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they can do. The possibilities seem endless. So how do we get someone from being a tiny baby, fresh-faced capsuleer to a seasoned veteran, the kind of person who would love to come to Fanfest like all of you beautiful people? The way that we wanted to get our hooks into people, to get them hooked on this game, is through story. Now, EVE is a sandbox game, so there is a certain school of thought that says that sandbox games defy traditional linear narratives, but we do not accept that. We think that this injection of a storyline campaign into the early player experience is critical for building that emotional investment for people. But where do we start our story? Surprisingly, we start at the beginning. As CCP Sledgehammer discussed, we really want to ground players in the reality of this fiction by starting them at day one, the first day they are reborn as a capsuleer. You wake up in your capsule for the first time, you see the way that you now exist in relation to your ship, and you are introduced to the Air Capsuleer training program. So this is really your absolute first moments in space. But we can't just send you out into space without any kind of anchor point. You need to have an anchor in this vast world with all of its endless possibilities. Enter the Association for Interdisciplinary Research. So we knew that we wanted to create an NPC corporation that was specifically for new players, that catered to their needs, that was there to answer their questions. And the I in AIR is probably the most important part. It stands for interdisciplinary, and it's meant so that it can grow and evolve to meet the needs of new players, whatever they may be. We want to teach them combat, we have a department for that. Teach them mining, we've got a department for that. And most importantly, we have the Air Capsuleer training program, which can introduce you to careers, and CCP Nomad is going to talk a little bit about that later. But what is AIR, you ask? AIR is this new corporation that positions themselves as a disruptor of New Eden's tech scene. They want people to think they're this bold new voice, they're breaking barriers, and they want to democratize the expensive and very, very risky process of becoming a capsuleer. So this is met with mixed opinions in New Eden, because some people see them as this really incendiary type of organization. They're trying to disrupt the status quo. Some people are into that, some people are not so into that. And more importantly, who is AIR? As Sledgehammer mentioned, we are super keen on making this a character-driven story, so NPCs are really going to be the beating heart. We don't want them to just serve a gameplay function. We don't just want Balin Ferris to teach you about combat. We also want him to be as integrated into the story as anything else, because you can have a clever plot, but if you don't have characters that people care about, it's all sort of for nothing. So the first of the AIR NPCs I want to introduce you to is a woman named Vesper Calytrix. I don't have audio? No? Okay. So Vesper is the Vice President of Operations for AIR. She is the charismatic Ice Queen archetype. She was born in the Amar Empire, but was orphaned by a Blood Raider attack on a ship that her family was traveling on. She was, her escape pod traveled outside of Amar space and was picked up by the Sisters of Eve, where she met the AIR CEO, Alita Balashirian, who is formerly of SOE, and she is voiced by the inimitable Catherine Kingsley, whose voice, unfortunately, you're not hearing today. We also have Balin Ferris. He's the commander of air security. He is the first person that you boldly go into battle with. He rose up through the ranks of the Minmatar Republic fleet before being recruited by AIR. He is that stalwart, gruff, but kind military guy. He's responsible for the organization and deployment of AIR's paramilitary wing, and he is responsible also for the training of all air pilots. And he takes that responsibility very, very seriously. He's voiced by Ben Turner, who brought a really interesting dimension to this character. Still no audio. But he sort of injected this sort of London working class edge to his accent, which pulls that real world connotation into the game to sort of give you a sense of what this character's background may be like. And last of the AIR NPCs so far, we have Elias Peltonen. Elias is AIR's mining expert. He is the maverick. He is the kind of guy who loves money. He loves adventure, travel, and just like AIR, he prizes his independence. Because AIR is like, they're not affiliated with any empire, so they are strict, very strict about pursuing independence and not having sort of tangled relationships with the other powers that be in New Eden. And I think of all of the Air NPCs, Elias might be the most fun to have a beer with. And he's voiced by the incredible Derek Hagan, who really, once I said that the inspiration for Elias Peltonen's character was Brendan Fraser from The Mummy, he just took that and ran. And last, but certainly not least, for the NPCs in the Air NPE, we have Aura. She is your first friend in space, a stalwart companion, an unfailing ally. And as is written here, you can see that the galaxy is dark and full of terrors, but you are not alone, because she is there for you at the best of times, she's there for you at the worst of times. And we really wanted to foster that type of relationship between Capsuleer and Aura. As is mentioned in the Air MPE, there are thousands, if not millions, of copies of Aura in New Eden, but she is your Aura, and you are her pilot. So there's definitely a very strong relationship that we wanted to really nurture. And I won't waste too much time on this slide, because CCP Sledgehammer went into it, but how do we introduce Capsuleers to a world like New Eden? Violently. Now I get audio.
Vectoring escape route. Evacuation sequence initiated. Station hull integrity.
So you've woken up in your pod, and you're like, this is great, I have time to acclimatize to what life as a Capsuleer would be like. No, you don't. You are just violently born into space through this exploding tunnel, and all of a sudden you're just a lonely little pod floating in space. What's going to happen to me now? Who's to say? So now what? We have this grand creative vision. We have the pursuit of a mystery that kicks off with the attack on the cloning facility and develops with the mining adventure. But how do we pull that off? So we needed, as a team, to be as interdisciplinary as Air. We needed to involve other teams. We needed to loop in art and audio and basically every sensory experience that goes into creating a video game. And we needed fun new tools. To talk to you a little bit about that, I'm going to hand this over to CCP Edelweiss.
Thanks, CCP Calliope. Hi, Fanfest. I'm CCP. I'm CCP Edelweiss. I'm software engineer at CCP. And OK, I'm going to take you through the first moments of Eve for a new player.
Unable to identify our attackers, but they are not currently targeting our capsule. This gives us time to locate a ship.
At this point, they've created a new character, they've watched that intro video, and so they're in space, they're in a capsule, there's no UI, they've just met Aura. And she's going to guide them through this story, where they see a bit about the game and they learn the basics.
Your pod may be able to fly through space, but like all capsules, it is unarmed. A proper ship comes with proper weaponry.
The question for us in tech was, how do we guide new players in EVE? How do we build an interactive story? And the tools that we had back then were not going to cut it. They were too linear, and we really wanted players to do things on their own, to be able to go off the golden path. So what we came up with were these node graphs, or Noddy for friends. You can see them here below. They're somewhat similar to the visual programming from game engines like Unreal. We have actions in blue, like show this Aura conversation or play that music trigger. And we connect them in a timeline to, for example, events in red, where we're waiting for some player input, like camera rotated or camera zoomed out, and so on. So let's see it in action. No.
We must scan the debris for a space-worthy
The green frame
vessel.
means currently active.
Now, let's get a better look at our surroundings.
And now Aura is asking the player to zoom out, which is that show conversation in blue. And we're waiting for the player to actually zoom out, which is the event in red, camera zoom out. And now they will zoom out.
Ah, there is a ship still
And you see
capable of
how
flight.
it advances to
An
the next
Astero, no less.
box.
A fine ship indeed.
As you can imagine, there are many things that we can do with these boxes. Like, we can use them to reveal parts of the UI. We can control the UI pointers. We can choose on one path or the other based on a condition or some player input. And by now, I believe we have about 500 different types of these boxes. So there are many options.
I have highlighted the navigation section of your display. Use it to approach the ship.
But the main takeaway is that we've built a powerful framework to script experiences. And we're using it not just in the client, but also in the server to control dungeon spawning, to trigger NPC behaviors, to give out items, etc. And this tool gives us the flexibility to build experiences and content like you haven't seen before. And not just for new players. We want, and we are going to empower other teams within CCP with this node graph technology so they can also build more immersive content. Our next step in Team Odyssey is to use career agent missions as a test bed for bringing this technology to missions and to dungeons. And I worked in many content systems in EVE, but this one is a big step up. So I'm super excited for the future. CCP Sledgehammer, what else can we reveal?
Thank you very much. So the next thing that we're going to work on for the Air MPE is the exploration adventure. New players like the idea of exploration coming into the game. They've heard tales of a vast, living sci-fi universe, and they want to uncover it for themselves. They want to unravel its mysteries and journey out into its unknowns. So we really want to embrace those desires with the exploration chapter. We want them to appreciate the vastness of New Eden and marvel at its celestial sights. We want them to discover ancient mystery and history and to be armed with knowledge and skills to strike out on their own. We have the opportunity to take them on a journey filled with contextually sensitive information about New Eden. We will describe how exploration complements the different careers. You know, you can hack a can, get some stuff from it. This is used by industry to build or invent. And we'll teach them the basic elements of exploration as you all know them. So bookmarks, hacking, scanning, and while ensuring that all of this feels like an organic part of the story. We're going to look at career agents. We're delivering content periodically in both installments of their MPE, and we use the career agents as a handoff into New Eden proper at the moment. We're aware that there's quite a difference in quality between our Air MPE experience and the career agents. So we want to use, as Edelweiss has said, our node graph system to introduce a guidance layer to these missions. So pointing out which ship is important here, or where do I get these prisoners? We want to move local text into conversation windows, like you've seen with Aura and Elias and Balin and Vesper. The corp chat window is in focus by default for new players. So there's so much in local chat that can be missed in all of these mission chains that we want to surface this and highlight it. This is part of like elevating the text so that it's more readable, but also in mission chains where there's characters, we want to like have them in a conversation window so it doesn't feel like some chatbot that's just talking to you. We're going to adjust gameplay where strictly necessary, and I want to be clear that this is just our first iteration on the career agents, and we're looking at updating the rewards if necessary. This is what Odyssey is going to focus alongside Art. who are in, as you saw yesterday in their speech, the early stages of a massive visual update to all of this content. This is an example of Pathfinder's work on a potential mock-up for iteration on the agent conversation UI, for instance. We want to better surface and make the rewards clearer. We want to show the objectives, and there's a discrepancy currently with the agent conversation window and the read details button. Some of the information is present in one and not in the other, and it's not very glanceable for the players. So we want to treat that with an update to the conversation UI. I'm going to pass this over to CCP Nomad, who genuinely got goosebumps when they announced that there was going to be an Excel integration with Eve. So please give it up for CCP Nomad. He's going to talk to you more about the character progression and career progression. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Team Odyssey. Hello, survivors of Fanfest Day 1. Give yourself a round of applause, guys. It's nice to see you here all. Okay, so that's the topic. The factory of capable capsuleers. Character progression, player progression, core loop, and core competency. I'm CCP Nomad. I'm a game designer for Team EVEOnline for EVEOnline. Eve devs do play Eve. Go figure. Maybe I cannot compare to some of you hotshots in the audience, but I do know a thing or two about the game. I'm part of this team, and we are responsible for player and character progression in EVEOnline. This is a multidisciplinary team with a mix of veterans and newcomers, both to CCP and to EVE. Having such a diverse team is crucial when making content and systems for new players. So what is a core loop? It is something that you perform repeatedly. This is the basis of a game. And you progress in the game when you manage to perform this loop faster and faster over time, or when you take on more challenging loops inside the game. Now, before I go there, so first thing, you set yourself a goal. You look, what's fun to do in this game? What looks interesting to me? Then you research it a bit. Is it worth it? Then finally, you pick a task for that particular area of the game. Then you prepare your ship by getting the ship itself, the modules. Then you train the missing skills, if there are any. You then go and perform the task. You get the reward, and then you analyze what happened. Was it all good? Or maybe there's something that I can do better next time. Maybe there's a change in the fitting that would help me in this adventure. So then you improve the skills if needed, to get even better at that. And you go back to the start. Now, some of those items here are not like the others. We have player progression that's intertwined with the character progression. Both are a source of satisfaction, which is part of why games are fun, why we are playing games as humans. So core competency is when you can perform the core loop of the game unassisted. That is one of the things we are aiming for. We can show the player progression, character progression like this. Sometimes you are limited by your character. You might be lacking skills, for example, or having bad standings to do some things. Other times you are limited by your knowledge or lack of experience. So while character progression is explicit and measurable in skill points or ISK, the player progression is much more subtle and cannot be measured easily, especially by new players. Our goal is to make the player progression more explicit and thus easier to comprehend and relate to. At the same time, we're making the first steps for the character progression path to be more accessible by making the initial player decisions much simpler, and skill plans are an example of that. So how to engage a new player? A story is how humans communicate, and we've heard about that from Team Odyssey, from CCP Calliope. A helpful lesson is something that a helpful lesson results in acquired knowledge that you can apply to get better at something. And the sooner you can apply the knowledge that you have gained, the better you retain that knowledge. It doesn't go away. Then about the guidance. We use guidance in moments where we know that the player might be lost, where we set the set of available choices is too big, or where the consequences of such a choice are not clear. Then we have safe environment, and it can have multiple dimensions. For example, starting the game in high sec is an example of safe environment. But also this applies to communicating to the player that whatever choice they make, they won't regret it. That is safe environment as well. So Team Odyssey, right before me, they were talking about the first two items on this list, mostly. The narrative-driven gameplay and the helpful lessons. Now we're moving to the other two, where we engage with the player by providing them with choices and guidance for their decisions. So the choice itself, how to make it easier. The most important thing, just limit the number of options. If there's too many, then explanations won't help, really. And explain the consequences of the choice. Provide the player with the information, what they will gain by making this choice, or what might be at stake, what they might be risking by making this choice. And also, keep them away from potentially regrettable choices. Try to keep them away from making a decision that they will regret later, and that applies to skills a lot. There are many players who regret training into mining because other players told them to do so, and they found out that they didn't really like it afterwards. We all know this. So certified skill plans feature that was introduced in September was the first step on this road. Instead of expecting the player to pick one of 500 skills to train, we present them with a much simpler choice, which is who you want to be. Simple as that. And for that, we just give them 4 options. When they select the career path, when they decide who they want to be, they can choose a faction they want to follow. So this puts an emphasis on the fact that the race of your character does not limit your possibilities. You can expand horizontally in skills for any ships or activities, no matter which race your character is. And you guys have been asking this for years. Since before skill plans, you used the forums and websites to share the list of skills with each other. That was great. However, anytime the game requires you to get out of it, to find some information, that increases the friction and breaks the immersion, which is not something that we like, or you. So since September release with skill plans, many organizations adopted them to help their recruits. This was a tweet from EVEOnline. They've put together a great list of skill plans that are available both to the members of the university, but also to all the players outside of it. They share them with everyone. It's really good stuff. If you are interested in seeing skill plans prepared for new players that are really well done, I recommend you guys to check that out. So in each certified skill plan, we recommend the suitable ship fitting, so that instead of asking the player to figure that out on their own, we give them an example to follow that they can use to modify or to learn what is really the correct fitting, so to speak. So they don't do dual tank or things like that. We have seen that as well on Zkill. And just recently, we have fixed some discrepancies in those fittings. The fixes will be released in June. And then all of those fittings that are in the certified skill plans will match one-to-one with the community fittings that you can see in the fitting window, just to make things more consistent and easier and avoid confusing the players. So also, all certified skill plans try to lead you to content as well. They provide a link in the description that opens a particular panel of the agency where you can find the content that we're interested in. But skill plans are useful not only for new players. I've been meeting with some of you this week, asking about skill plans, how you like them, how you use them. The response I got was usually, thank you for making it easier to manage my 24 hours training. You are welcome. It helps me too. So going back to the narrative design a bit. If you became a capsuleer within the last few months, you have been taken care of by AIR at the very beginning of your journey. They have put you on a special program so you could learn about and experience what there is to do for you as a capsuleer. Unfortunately, that endeavor got interrupted by an explosion, no less. You got thrown into space in your pod without much preparation, and then AIR representatives stayed with you and guided you through those circumstances, explaining things on the fly, and hopefully you have learned something from that. Now the actual AIR career program can continue, can resume, and AIR can introduce you to the available careers and let you learn them by doing. So what is the AIR career program? It's a system that lets you choose the career in similar way to skill plans. That is who I want to be. Then choose the activity you might be interested in, what I want to be doing, what I think will be fun for me in the game. And then choose the particular goal, what I want to do now. So this system, I described most of it yesterday. The system tracks all the actions that every player takes. And for completing arbitrary goals, it rewards the capsuleer for that. The rewards are usually relevant to the career the goal is associated with. So for example, if you fulfill a goal that's related to industry, then you may get a skill book for an industrial ship. Additionally, the system provides you with skill points, so you can accelerate the training. It offers a good visibility into what kind of activities are associated with specific careers. You can browse things and see for each career what kind of actions are associated. If I call myself an explorer, what does that mean in the game? What there's for me to do to then call myself I'm competent explorer, competent. Additionally, the system suggests the activities that are beneficial to new players, to fresh capsuleers. Then for each goal that you look at, that you want to perform, it provides you with guidance from Aura. And that's an interesting thing. We have run some user research where we presented the players with the prototype of the system. And they liked it a lot that the Aura is back. They really like her during the NPE, what has been part of what Team Odyssey we're talking about. And they missed her when that NTE has finished. So they really appreciated seeing her back and helping them go through all of this. Also, if you want to pursue the goals for the sake of rewards, which are skill points as the most important reward, then you are kind of pushed into all areas of the game. where you can experience things that maybe you were not so interested at the beginning, but you may find them interesting after getting engaged with them. Of course, this is not mandatory. It's all about your choice. Also, this system gives you free expert systems that allow you to fly all rookie-friendly ships, so frigates and destroyers, across all races, no matter which character race you are. And lastly, the system creates capable capsuleers who know what to do and how to do it. So this is the choice of the carrier. It looks almost the same as in the skill plans. But additionally, each of those choices will be accompanied with some more information, both from Aura and in form of a short video explaining what this carrier is about. At the very bottom, you can see your progress towards the skill point rewards. Because for completing every goal, besides receiving reward in form of ISK or modules or ships or skills or skins, you will receive career points, which are simply a system of measurement of your progress, both inside each of those careers, but also overall in the whole career program. Here you can see activities within the Enforcer career. Aura recommends you the activity that should benefit you the most as a new capsuleer. In this case, go and do some career agent missions for start. They will teach you something. At the bottom, you can see the progress towards the graduation moment for this particular career. The graduation moment is when you complete 75% of all the goals that are designated for this career. And for that, you receive more skill points, but also skins that are related to this career. After selecting a particular goal, you get the details of it, including the tips from our Aura on how to complete it. You can see in the bottom right corner, this is where Aura Assistance panel resides, and it provides you with more information about how do I do this stuff precisely. So a couple of examples. This is also something I've shown you yesterday. So the reward section here shows the ISK and items that you will receive when you complete the task. Some goals provide you with the rewards that are outside of your race. For example, if you are an Amar. I'm sorry?
We are all human. There are no different races.
Fine. If you are an Amar, you will get Min Matar skill books for Min Matar frigates. If you're a Kaldari, you will get Galente skill books for frigates. Again, to make an emphasis on the fact that you can expand horizontally. The risk estimation shows you how likely it is for you to lose a ship by trying to attempt to complete this goal. And the time estimation shows you how long it may take for you to complete this goal. So when you sit at your computer and you have half an hour, you may reconsider which one to pick. Like mentioned before, Air Career Program provides players with free expert systems. And they are the rewards for each of the career agent missions. When you complete career agent missions for specific career, then you get an expert system that enables you to fly all the ships that are relevant to that career within frigate and destroyer sizes. And there's about 1 million skill points worth of skills in those expert systems. Those are support skills and all weapon system skills. So for example, if you are on an Enforcer path and you get the expert system from the Enforcer, it will give you skills for frigates, for Amar, Min Matar, Kaldari, and Galente, but also skills for hybrid weapons, projectiles, missiles, drones, shields, armor, all that, the full set. So to expose you to all types of combat, all types of tactics, so then you can decide what to train. This is the list of ships for each of the expert system that will be enabled. This should also help the recruiters to inform the recruits about what they can do, what they should be trying out, or be easier to accommodate in the corporation. Just finish the career agents, you'll get an expert system, and you can fly with us immediately because you will have the skills required. So there's 188 goals so far, grouped into 40 types of activities, and those are into 4 careers. That's in total about 70 hours of content. So that's like a month of playing 2 hours every day. That should get the players engaged enough to get exposed to all the social aspects of EVE, to interact with you guys, and get engaged more into the game. So what's next? I've shown you an interesting slide yesterday about this. And I'm sure you will guys have some questions. We'll have a roundtable at 1. We'll be talking a bit about this, if you will be asking about this. But to summarize, where are we going with this? We plan to rebalance all the skills and try to fix some inconsistencies between them. And to reduce the level of complication involved in the optimization of training, we are removing character attributes. And because we are removing character attributes, we have to look into implants, because they are closely related. So we'll be revamping the whole implant gameplay, not only about learning implants, but all implants and boosters. I will say more about that in a couple of slides. And finally, the skill training will be removed. So no more training queue, no more training a skill. You will be accumulating skill points passively over time at a fixed rate that you will be able to adjust through implants, for example. And then you will be applying those skill points either to skill plans or to particular skills that you want. So the skills rebalance will touch all aspects of every skill, just to make sure that some of the skills that are 20 years old, almost, make sense for the players today and make sense in the context of all the other skills. The character attributes today are complex and complicated, but also obscure. The game doesn't tell you why one skill trains faster than another. Some of you know what is the training equation, but probably not all of you. And we'll just getting rid of that, making the system more simple. So no, not complicated anymore, but it still will be complex for those who want to get deeper into it, to optimize it more. The implants, as I said, they rely on character attributes, so we have to revise them. But that ties to jump clones. And today they cover too many subjects at once. They are responsible for gearing up the same way you fit modules to ships. You also choose particular jump clone with correct implants if you are going into combat, or if you are doing PvE, you just switch them up. So that's the gearing aspect of jump clones. But also the travel, that's another thing that you use jump clones for. And then on top of that, we have skill progression, which is learning implants. So all those 3 things are involved in jump clones gameplay, and that's not ideal, because those things are not that related to each other, really. So we'll be looking into some revisions in this area. And the training itself, as I mentioned, it's difficult to understand or to explain why some skills take longer to train than the others, how all of it makes sense, what are attributes, what are attribute remaps, why I can do that only once a year. This is some crazy stuff. Who came up with it? So if we are removing the training queue, that means you will be left with skill plans as the tool for you to plan your progression. And the training queue wasn't ideal for that anyway, because it didn't allow you to plan without commitment. And what I mean by that is you had to buy the skill book first to inject them, and only then you could add them to the training queue to see how long it will take for you to achieve particular skill, to be able to fly that ship. Now, skill plans allow you to do that without commitment. You can just add the skills and see how long they will train. Only then you can decide to buy them or not, to start training them or not. So we had, since we'll be removing the training queue, we had to give you skill plans first. That's when this whole journey started for our team. And that is it for now. I recommend you all to come to the roundtable if you can for Team Odyssey and Team Equinox. It's embracing new citizens in EVE. Thank you very much.